What's up, guys? I am here with the one and only Tyler Tatum from Movement Mortgage. Tyler, you were somebody special I wanted to talk to about this podcast because I heard that you went toe to toe with the property appraisers.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people are going to see this, but I don't I don't know. I don't need anybody knocking on my door, but I do have a few hacks that I guess hack is kind of a trendy term, but I've got some things that people can do to save quite a bit
Yeah.
in a time where monthly payment affordability and home affordability is at an all-time low. So we need every little incentive we can get, and I've got a pretty big one to share.
That's awesome. And so that incentive homestead exemption.
Yeah, so you got homestead exemption. A lot of people, I wouldn't say a lot of people, but if anybody's purchased a home before, they've heard that term. Basically, there's something in the state of Florida called the Save Our Homes Act, which states if you have a primary residence, you can apply for this exemption on your property taxes. The low-hanging fruit on that Save Our Homes Act is that you will save $50,000 off of the assessed value of your home. So let's just say, the property appraiser, they drive around in white cars all year round and they're assigning a value to real estate, commercial and residential. And what this does is this deducts $50,000 off of the value they've assigned to your property. So you're paying taxes essentially on $50,000 less.
Right.
If you look at the millage rate in our area, most neighborhoods around here is about 1.78%. So
Okay.
times 50,000, that means the average homeowner can save about $900 a year just by doing that.
That's a lot of savings.
$900 a year
Yeah.
in tax savings relative to, let's say, an investor or a non-owner occupant. Someone who's got a vacation home or investment home here, they don't get that same savings because it's not their primary residence. So it is meant to incentivize people to live, work, and play in these communities and give them a break on their taxes for doing so.
That's great. So I heard this year actually that $50,000 increase. So now they're basing 25% or $25,000 plus what the cap rate is.
Well, we're going to have to get the podcast out quick because they're also trying to, there's some school of thought out there that property taxes might go away for owner occupants.
Crazy.
Like, we don't know what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
All I can really say is kind of how it looks right now. But yeah, so if you looked at that, that's just in addition. So another $450 a year in tax savings if that increases that another $25,000. That's kind of the low hanging fruit of that same saver. Most people understand that part.
Right.
There's a whole nother side of it that will save you way more money that most people don't know about.
Okay.
And that's called homestead portability.
Okay.
So what happens is when you apply, you purchase the property, you're excited, you get the deed in the mail, you're like, what is this? You want to record your homestead exemption. You can go in person, do it the old-fashioned way, which I highly recommend because stuff can happen when you do it online. You go in person, say this is my primary residence, I want to file for homestead exemption. That's going to give you $50,000 deduction on your taxable value, but it's also going to put a cap at the amount that your assessed value of your home can increase year over year. It doesn't seem like a big deal until you've owned a house for 10 years and realize the differential between what you could sell your house for and what you're being taxed at could be as much as $500,000.
Or go through a time like COVID where we saw home properties increase 20 plus percent and your taxable values only raised 3%.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. So if you think about the people that, I know people want to talk about snowbirds, especially here being at the beach. We're super local, hyper local community. You're getting, if you've been in the real estate game, like me, I mean, I was kicking and screaming in 2011. I didn't want to buy this house.
Right.
I was in the mortgage industry. My wife was fiance at the time, and she was very dead set. She wanted this place. It was, again, I was living First Street. I was surfing every day. I was playing volleyball when I got off work, walking to the beach. She got me to buy this house, and here we are, however many years later, is the best investment I've ever made. She wasn't even in the industry. She got me over that hump, the initial analysis paralysis. And we bought that house in 2011. And because we did that, I can firmly say now in 2025, my net worth is substantially higher just because of that one. Because we got in the game.
So let's go back and unpack the portability, because I think that's something that unfortunately a lot of people leave on the table, and you only have, I mean, there's a time constraint.
Now, maybe?
Yeah, it's 3 years. So if you don't claim and port over your homestead exemption from your previous home to your new home, within the 3 years, and it's actually less than that. I think it's 3 years from March to March, and you have to be within that window.
Fiscal year, maybe.
It's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone. And there's also a cap on how much you can bring over, right? So what is that?
500 grand.
500 grand, and that's for a married couple, right?
I don't know if they take into account household size.
Okay.
I think it's just based on property.
Okay.
You know, you can use this. The biggest thing for anybody that's listening to this that's bought or sold real estate in the last 2 years, if you have no idea what portability is, you need to reach out to somebody to find out, because you could have money sitting there on the table in Duval, St. Johns County. It's all over the state of Florida.
Right.
They're probably hoping you don't reach out to do it, and that expiration time lapses, and you can't get that money back. But to put it into a real world example, the house that we bought in 2011, we bought it. Now I'm going to tell you how much we paid for it, which is pretty ridiculous because it's 2nd Avenue North. We bought it for 150 grand.
Wow. And you wish you still had that house.
I do wish I still. That's the thing. Is just like, I've been in the mortgage space for over 14 years now.
Yeah.
And I've had so many conversations, so many more conversations with people that say they wish they never sold the house than conversations with people that said they wish they never bought the house.
Right.
Even going through, when I got into it in 2011, it was coming out of the Great Recession, the biggest housing crisis we've seen. Even if someone had bought right then, which I was speaking to people in 2011, they're like, I don't want to buy right now because home prices are going to keep dropping.
Yeah, they're inflated. I mean, things are going crazy.
They've gone up 200% since 2011.
Right.
So you got to get in the game. That's the number one thing. And once you're in the game, the way you can use that to your advantage for the rest of your life while you're owning property in the state of Florida is with this portability. So basically, what we did is we had accrued the difference between what our house was worth and what we initially bought it for. Remember, when we bought it, we applied for that exemption and put a 3% annual cap.
Right.
So the difference between what we ultimately ended up selling it for and what our taxable value was about $350,000. So what that is, that's portability. That's tax savings that I can bring over to the new property that I purchased. Purchased a new house for $630,000, and now I got to apply the $350,000 onto that. In addition to the $50,000 homestead exemption, I've got $400,000 in savings off of my taxable value, which now means I'm paying taxes based more like a $250,000 house than a $630,000 house.
Now there's stipulations, right? So you can't buy a house in 2011 for $150,000, sell it for $650,000. You have $500 grand in taxable savings. You can't then go buy a $200,000 house and apply it all and have zero taxes. So they actually make you you have to be purchasing up. So you have to purchase a property that's higher in value. Otherwise, what they'll do is there's a calculation where they look at the percentage. Yeah. So if you're, it's a percentage equation, which we'll put in the notes about how they'll calculate what your portability is if you're buying a property that's lesser value than the
people
one that
are
sold.
downsizing.
Right.
Yeah.
But there is savings there, and certainly something for everybody to take advantage of. And if you're leaving this on the table, it's huge.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to talk about, Save Our Homes benefit, and it's actually something that I went through as a real estate agent, where I was under contract for a home. A homeowner put their house up for sale. I had the buyer. We put it under contract, and then the seller decided that I wasn't going to show up to closing. Right? So people are like, well, didn't you have a contract? Did you guys go after them? And the thing that I learned through all of this is that if your home is homesteaded, somebody cannot force you to sell that home. And that's something that I learned going through the process where, we could have filed a lawsuit. We could have gone after them for damages, but then we would have had to prove what the damages were, but we couldn't force that person to sell their home because it was homesteaded. So that was another benefit that was a hidden benefit that I didn't know about with the Save Our Homes
Yeah, there's
Act.
a lot in there. I've never read all the way through it. My wife's an attorney. I'm sure she's probably more knowledgeable to speak on those matters than I am. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it gets lost in the shuffle. There's a lot of numbers that get thrown around when you buy or sell a house.
Right.
And people hear that 3%, and they just don't think it's that big of a deal. But when you look at what Albert Einstein said, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. So you look at that in years where we had double-digit home price appreciation, and we're still seeing, albeit lower appreciation, we're still seeing it here at the beaches. You could look at saving, I think it was 22 to 23. It was 20 something percent home price appreciation right here. If your taxes are capped at 3%, there's 17% and savings that you have versus the person next door that just bought their house.
So let's unpack that. So if you had a house that was that you bought for $500,000 and it increased by 20%,
yep,
that's $100,000 right there in taxable savings that you now have as part of your portability, and you can then take that $100,000 and forever use it, apply it to your next home, and it will always be deducted off the assessed value, which then provides you your taxable value. So those of you guys that are listening, I am going to provide you guys with a link where you can find what your portability cap is. You could go on to the Duval County or St. Johns County Property Appraiser website, and there's actually a section that shows you what your portability or cap rate looks like. So if you guys are interested to look at that. So the last thing I want to talk about is maybe something we won't publish, but you went toe to toe with the Property Appraiser website because, everybody's property assessed value could be appealed and can be reviewed. Right. So it's based on an appraiser's opinion of value. So tell me a little bit about your story and how you may have increased your portability or fought to bring over more portability from your own house.
Right. Yeah. So it's kind of a double-edged sword because as a homeowner on your primary residence, you don't want to increase your value to a point where you're now paying more in taxes. Right. But it is a savvy strategy if you know that sometime within the next 12 to 18, maybe 24 months, you intend on selling a home and you want to maximize your tax benefit, you can appeal whatever the market value is with the property appraiser. There's a process. That process has changed since I did it. That was back in 2020. It was kind of the wild, wild west.
Right.
But you can go on there and appeal if you believe the value that they've assigned to your property is too low. You can get that value appealed, get a new appraisal completed, increase that value, which then increases that gap between your taxable value and the market value, increases the portability. You get an extra $100,000 based on the millage rate here. That's $1,700 a year in tax savings that you're going to get.
So that's very interesting because you made a good point. People don't want to go and fight for their house to be worth more on the property appraiser's website because they're afraid they're going to pay for more taxes. Right. But if you're anticipating on buying a new home in the next couple of years, it is a good strategy to look at what your assessed value is compared to what the market value is. And if your market value, in your opinion, is too low, go increase that value. And I think when I went through that process, I did the same process as you, right? I was building a house. I knew that my current house, it was worth more than what it was showing on the property appraiser's website. So I went and I appealed to increase the market value, which increased my portability, which then I almost brought over my cap. I almost brought the full $500,000 over to my new home, which was a huge savings for us. So every year, mine's actually right at $400,000. Every year, I pay what my market value is minus $400,000 plus the
$8,000 a year in savings.
It's huge.
Just on that.
It's huge.
Yeah, and there is some. That's where the difference between market value and assessed value comes into play as well, because my market value on my home just now increased substantially just based on what's happening around my area, but my assessed value can't go up by more than 3%.
That's right.
So go get your market value increased by $200,000. Your assessed, as long as it stays homesteaded, is capped out at 3% annually. So there's really no harm in doing that.
That's right.
Now, if you think you're going to be in the house for 30 years, it might be a waste of your time and energy, but...
Well, that's a huge point. So I want to talk a little bit about what Tyler just said. So he said that if you went now and increased your market value, it's not changing your assessed value because it's just your market value. Your assessed value will continue to only rise 3% a year. But if you do anticipate selling in the future, it is certainly a healthy strategy to do. Now, the only downside to that, and I will say, is if you plan on keeping your house as a rental, you're going to go fight to bring up your market value much higher, and then you're going to bring over your homestead to your new house, and now your market value on your current or your old house is much higher. But again, they're going to assess it anyways. They're going to potentially bring it up. But again, that would be the only downfall of doing that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I just had a conversation with a home buyer, a buddy of mine, and he's got a house west of Mayport, Dutton Island area that's appreciated quite a bit. And we were looking at that potentially increasing his assessed value to port over more savings to the new house that he purchased. But he's contemplating converting into an investment property. So that's essentially like raising your hand and asking to be taxed more,
right?
Versus trying to see if you can, just play it cool for a little bit and fly under the radar. I will tell you, all of this stuff too somewhat gets thrown out the window if you make any substantial renovations to your home, mostly exterior renovations. Right. Property appraisers aren't knocking on your door and going and seeing what the inside of your house looks like.
Well, they do sometimes, but you can deny to let them in.
Yeah, sometimes. But for the most part, if they see you pulled permits for a pool, that could trigger a reassessment. Right. If they see that you pull permits for a major addition, I'm not telling you not to pull permits, but I'm just telling you that could play some role in your market value, your assessed value as well. So there's just a whole nother can of worms.
Well, guys, Tyler Tatum, Movement Mortgage, thank you so much. If anybody has any questions on what portability is, I can't find the link, reach out to either me or Tyler. What a great resource you are to us and our team. Thank you again for sharing some of those nuggets.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for having me. And one of the things that I do want to touch on really quick while we're here is working with a local agent, working with a local realtor is extremely important, and knowing these nuances of how taxes work in our local community. Like, there's so many.
That's right.
When it comes down to how much are you going to bring into closing? Hey, Tyler, can you help me not only tell me what my payment's going to be today, but can you tell me what it's going to be in 3 years when I have a reassessment? It's really important because people that aren't here in our local community don't have a working knowledge of portability and how taxes and exemptions work. There's so many other exemptions other than just homestead. There's veterans exemptions, widow and widower exemptions. So look into those as well.
Yeah, and especially when you're getting pre-qualified, right? If you are right at the top of your mark, stretching it already, and you are purchasing a home that's been homesteaded for the last 15 years, and the lender you're using, and Movement does a great job at this, the lender you're using sometimes will base your payment off the old taxable value. Movement will actually tell you, hey, right now this is what the house's taxable value is, but expect it to go up by X percent or go close to this amount in the next year after the current tax year.
It's really important. We again, with home price affordability already being stretched and monthly payment affordability being stretched, we want people to be able to plan, like, not just to close on the house today, but to know a year from now they're still going to be comfortable with that payment. And then as rates continue to drop, that'll just be icing on the cake.
That's right. Good deal, man.
All right, buddy.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.